"You want my ID? You'd better be absolutely sure you want to go down this road, officer, because once you pull this out, your career is over." Those were the calm, eerily silent words of a man in a tailored suit standing in a wealthy suburban coffee shop surrounded by stunned customers. The police officer in front of him, Officer Brett Harmon, smiled, his hand resting on his taser. He thought he was intimidating a suspect. He thought he was cleaning up the streets. He had no idea he was about to handcuff the assistant special agent in charge of the FBI's Civil Rights Division. What began as a morning race for coffee escalated into a national scandal that exposed a city's deep-seated corruption, destroyed a police department's reputation, and cost taxpayers $5.6 million. This isn't just a story about karma, it's a story about what happens when arrogance meets absolute power. Location: Oak Haven, an affluent suburb outside of Chicago. Date: Tuesday, October 14th, 8:15 a.m. The morning air in Oak Haven was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen maple leaves and expensive espresso. This was the kind of town where lawns were manicured with surgical precision, cars were exclusively German or electric, and the police force, the Oak Haven Police Department, prided itself on keeping the scum out. Raymond Bishop adjusted the cuffs of his charcoal Armani suit as he stepped out of his black government-issued SUV. Ray wasn't from Oak Haven. He was a man who had grown up in the roughest parts of Chicago's South Side, worked his way through law school, and spent 20 years climbing the ladder of federal law enforcement. Now at 48, he was a legend in the Bureau. He had dismantled human trafficking rings in D.C. and eradicated corruption in New Orleans. Today, however, he wasn't hunting criminals. He was hunting caffeine. He was also 30 minutes early for a high-level meeting with Sarah Miller, the state attorney. They were scheduled to discuss a joint task force on organized crime, and Sarah had suggested the Bean and Leaf, a trendy, upscale spot on Main Street known for its exclusive atmosphere. Ray glanced at his watch, a vintage Omega, a gift from his wife after his promotion. 8:15 in the morning. He had time. He pushed open the coffee shop's glass door. The bell chimed softly. The interior was a burst of rustic chic, reclaimed wood, Edison bulbs, and the low hum of indie folk music. The clientele was exactly what you'd expect. Women in yoga pants holding puppies, men in Patagonia, vests furiously typing on MacBooks. When Ray walked in, the murmur of conversation didn't stop, but it paused. He was a tall, broad-shouldered black man in a suit that cost more than most people's cars. He walked with a natural authority, head held high, his eyes scanning the room out of habit, not malice. But in Oak Haven, authority without a badge made people nervous. He approached the counter. The barista, a young college student named Jessica, looked up. He blinked, his smile wavering for a split second. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice slightly higher than it had been for the previous customer. "Good morning," Rai said, his voice a deep, smooth baritone. He smiled warmly, trying to dispel the tension he often felt. "I'll have a black coffee, dark roast, and a blueberry scone, please. Here to go?" Jessica glanced over at him toward the window. "Here? I'm meeting a colleague." "Okay, that'll be $12.50. 50 cents. Rai swiped his card. He moved to the pickup counter and waited. He pulled out his phone to check his emails. A message from his assistant director. "The indictment is sealed. We're moving against the cartel at noon." Ray allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. It was going to be a good day. He grabbed his coffee and pastry, scanning the room for a seat. He chose a small table near the window, wanting to keep an eye out for Sarah's arrival. He sat down, crossed his legs, and took a sip of the steaming coffee. Outside, a patrol car rolled slowly down Main Street. It was a black and white Dodge Charger with the words "Protect and Serve" emblazoned on the side. Behind the wheel was Officer Brett Harmon. Harmon was a 10-year veteran of the force. He was the kind of cop who peaked in high school. Football captain, bully, loudmouth. He had a thick neck, a buzz cut that was starting to go gray, and a personnel file full of excessive force complaints that had been conveniently swept under the rug by the police union. Harmon was bored. Oak Haven was quiet. Too quiet. He was itching for something to happen, something that would allow him to use the authority he felt was rightfully his. As he walked past the Bean and Leaf, his eyes fell on the window. He saw the customers, the regulars, and then he saw Ray. To Harmon, Ray didn't look like a federal agent preparing for a multi-state operation. In Harmon's prejudiced eyes, Ray seemed like an anomaly. A black man in a suit sat alone, watching the street. He's scouting the place, Harmon thought, or he's waiting for a delivery. Harmon pulled the patrol car to a halt, the wheels crunching against the curb. He didn't call for backup. He didn't check the license plate of the black SUV parked nearby. He simply put the car in neutral, fastened his tool belt, and got out. Inside the store, the atmosphere changed instantly. The moment the heavy door opened and the uniformed officer walked in, the chatter stopped. People stared from the police officer to the man in the window. Ray Bishop didn't look up. He was reading a report on his phone, but his training kicked in. He registered the heavy footsteps, the clinking of keys and equipment, the silence of the room. He knew exactly who had come in. Just ignore it, Ray told himself. Just a local cop doing his rounds. But the footsteps didn't lead to the counter. They led directly to him. Officer Harmon stopped at Ray's desk. He stood there for a long, awkward silence, his shadow falling across Ray's phone screen. Ray took a deep breath. He swiped to turn off the phone, placed it face down on the table, and looked up. He kept his expression neutral, the bureaucratic face. "Can I help you, officer?" Ray asked politely. Harmon didn't smile. He hooked his thumbs into his vest, hovering over the seated man. "Do you live around here?" Ray picked up his coffee cup. "Is there a problem?" "I have a question for you," Harmon said, his voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Do you live in this neighborhood?" "I don't see how that's relevant," Ray said calmly. "I'm a paying customer, having a coffee." "We've had a few complaints," Harmon lied. It was standard tactic. Fabricate a complaint to justify a request for ID. "Reports of suspicious activity, men matching your description, loitering in establishments." Ray almost laughed. "Matching my description? A man in a three-piece suit eating a scone?" A woman at a nearby table stifled a nervous giggle. Harmon's face turned red. He didn't like being mocked. "Stand up," Harmon ordered. Ray didn't move. He leaned back in his chair, interlacing his fingers. "Officer, I'm expecting a meeting. I haven't committed any crime. I haven't broken any laws. Unless I can articulate reasonable suspicion that I'm involved in criminal activity, I'm going to finish my coffee." This was the moment, the fork in the road. A smarter cop would have walked away. A smarter cop would have realized that men who speak with that level of calm and legal precision usually have the power to back it up. But Brett Harmon wasn't a smart cop. He was a thug who'd been challenged in front of an audience. "I said stand up," Harmon barked, reaching down for the baton on his belt. "I want to see some ID now." Ray sighed. It was a sigh of deep fatigue. He looked at the officer with eyes that had seen cartel bosses and serial killers, eyes that held no fear of a suburban patrolman. "Officer," Ray said, his voice dropping an octave, deadly serious, "you're making a mistake, a very costly mistake. I suggest you step back." Harmon grabbed Ray's arm. The moment Harmon's hand touched the expensive fabric of Ray's suit jacket, the dynamic in the room shattered. "Get your hands off me," Ray said. He didn't yell. He didn't flinch. He simply stated it as a fact. "He's resisting," Harmon shouted, playing to the imaginary camera he hoped would back up his report later. He roughly pulled Ray to his feet. Ray stood up. He was 2 inches taller than Harmon. He didn't buck violently, but stood firm with the solidity of a granite statue. "I'm not resisting," Ray said clearly, looking up at the security camera in the corner of the ceiling. "I'm complying with your physical force, but I verbally declare that I do not consent to this search or seizure. I haven't done anything wrong." "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Harmon was now running on adrenaline and ego. He spun Ray around, pushing him against the window. Ray's coffee cup tipped over, spilling dark roast onto the table and dripping onto the floor. "You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and failure to identify yourself," Harmon spat, grabbing his handcuffs. "Failure to identify yourself isn't a primary offense in this state unless you're being lawfully arrested for a crime," Ray recited. "What crime am I being arrested for? Littering? Trespassing?" "The owner didn't ask me to leave," Ray said, looking at Jessica, the barista. She was frozen behind the counter, looking terrified. "Miss, did he ask me to leave?" No." "Shut up," Harmon yelled at the barista. He clicked the first handcuff onto Ray's left wrist. The cold steel bit into his skin. Ray closed his eyes for a second. He was angry, furious in fact, but he knew that if he reacted, if he even moved in the wrong direction, this man could shoot him. He'd seen the files. He knew the statistics. He had to be perfect. "Officer," Ray said, his voice low, "in the inside pocket of my jacket, there's a leather wallet. Before I finish putting those handcuffs on you, I strongly suggest you look inside." "I don't care what's in your wallet." Harmon tugged on Ray's other arm. "You can show it to the judge." "It's not a driver's license," Ray said. "It's my credentials." Harmon paused. The word credentials hung in the air. "Credentials?" Harmon scoffed. "What? A security guard? A private investigator?" "Check it," Ray challenged him. Harmon hesitated. The confidence in Ray's voice was unsettling. With one handcuff on and the other dangling, Harmon reached into Ray's suit pocket. He felt the leather wallet. He pulled it out. It wasn't a standard bifold. It was a badge wallet. Harmon opened it. The gold badge gleamed in the cafeteria lights. It was heavy, detailed. The eagle at the top, the bold blue lettering. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent Raymond Bishop. Harmon stared at it. His brain tried to process the information, but it collided violently with the narrative he had constructed in his head. "Fake!" his brain screamed. "It has to be fake." "You can buy them online." "Nice toy," Harmon grunted, tossing the badge onto the coffee-soaked table. "Impersonating a federal officer. That's a serious crime, buddy. Now you're really in trouble." The crowd gasped. A man in the corner stood up. "Officer, that looks real." "Sit down," Harmon yelled at the customer. He slammed the second handcuff onto Ray's wrist. "You think I'm stupid? You think an FBI agent sits in a coffee shop in Oak Haven on a Tuesday morning?" Ray took a deep breath. "My badge number is 8940. My supervisor is Assistant Director Clara Vance. Wait, no. I should avoid that name. Assistant Director Catherine Holloway. If you look me up on NCIC, I'll show up as a protected federal employee. If you put me in that car, you're kidnapping a federal agent." "We'll see," Harmon said, pushing Ray toward the door. As they left, customers pulled out their phones. They were recording everything. The video of a calm, well-dressed black man being shoved out of a coffee shop by a red-faced, yelling police officer was already making its way to Instagram and TikTok. Outside, Harmon pushed Ray against the hood of the patrol car. The metal was cold. Harmon began searching him roughly, looking for weapons. he found Ray's service weapon, a Glock 19M, in its holster at his hip. "Gun!" Harmon yelled, stepping back and drawing his own. "He has a gun!" "I'm a federal agent," Rai said, his face pressed against the hood. "That's my service weapon. It's registered with the United States government. Shut your mouth." Harmon yanked the gun from Ray's holster and placed it on the roof of the car, out of his reach. "You're lucky I didn't leave you right here." Harmon clicked on his radio. "Dispatch, Unit 4 Alpha here. I have a male in custody, uncooperative, armed, possible fake credentials, requesting transport." "Copied for Alpha," crackled the dispatcher. Ray glanced sideways. He could see down the street. A silver Mercedes-Benz sedan was turning the corner. It was moving fast. It stopped directly behind the patrol car, blocking it. The door swung open. A woman in a smart navy blazer stepped out. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she was carrying a briefcase. It was Sarah Miller, the district attorney. She froze. She saw the police car. She saw the coffee shop customers watching from the window, and then she saw the man pinned against the hood of the patrol car, handcuffed. Her face went pale. Then it turned red with fury. "Officer!" Sarah yelled, dropping her briefcase on the pavement. "What the hell are you doing?" Harmon turned away, annoyed. "Get lost, ma'am. This is an active crime scene." Sarah marched toward him. She was 5'3", but she walked with the force of a hurricane. "I'm not a ma'am. I'm the district attorney for this county, and the man you have handcuffed is with the FBI. Harmon blinked. He looked at Sarah. He looked at Rai. He glanced through the window at the badge wallet still lying on the table inside the store. He had a fake badge. Harmon stammered, his confidence beginning to crumble. He was loitering. He had a gun. He has a right to have a gun. Sarah yelled in his face. He's a federal agent. Take the handcuffs off him now. Harmon swallowed. He looked at Ray. Ray moved away from the hood, slowly, turning to face the officer. The look in Ray's eyes was no longer one of anger. It was pity. "It's too late for that, Sarah," Ray said calmly. "Don't take them off." Harmon froze, wrench in hand. "What?" "I said don't take them off," Ray repeated. "He's already stopped me. He's arrested me. He's confiscated my gun. He's declared I'm impersonating an officer." "We're going to the station, Officer Harmon. We're going to process this arrest because I want every second of this on the official record." "Sir, Harmon's hands were shaking. "If she really is who she says she is, there's no if." Rai interrupted him. "I wanted to be a big shot. I wanted to make an arrest. Come on, read me my rights." Harmon stood there frozen. The reality of what he'd done crashed down on him. He had just assaulted and arrested a man who could have probably called the National Guard to this town if he'd wanted to. "Read me my rights," Rai ordered. Just then, 3 more vehicles screeched to a halt on the scene. These weren't Oak Haven police cars. They were black Chevrolet Tahoes with tinted windows and government license plates. The doors burst open. 6 men and women in tactical gear emerged, jackets bearing the FBI logo. They didn't draw their weapons on the officer, but their presence was overwhelming. They surrounded the scene. One of them, a senior agent named Tom, approached Harmon. "Officer," Tom said, his voice like rasping gravel, "I think you have my boss handcuffed. I'm going to need you to slowly move away from him." Harmon backed away, his hands raised in surrender. Rai looked at Sarah Miller. "Sarah, call Ben Crump. Call the media. I want everyone to see this." The cameras were rolling. The nightmare for Oak Haven was just beginning. The ride to the Oak Haven police station was less of a commute and more of a funeral procession for Officer Brett Harmon's career. Harmon drove in silence. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. His eyes kept glancing in the rearview mirror, not at his prisoner, but at the convoy behind him. 3 black Chevrolet Tahoes followed closely, their grille lights blinking silently. They weren't aggressive, but they were relentless. Every turn Harmon made, they made. Every time he braked, they braked. They were a pack of predators stalking wounded prey. In the back seat, Raymond Bishop sat comfortably despite the handcuffs. He had shifted so he could look out the window. He wasn't thinking about the pain in his wrists. He was thinking about Title 18, Section 242 of the U.S. Code. U.S. disenfranchisement under the guise of law. "You're quiet back there," Harmon said, his voice cracking. "I was probing. I wanted Ry to scream, to threaten him, to give him something, anything I could use to justify what I did. If he threatens me," Harmon thought, "I can add a charge. Terrorist threats. Something." Ry didn't respond. He just watched the manicured lawns of Oak Haven go by. "I said, you're quiet," Harmon snapped, his bravado dissolving like cheap paint. "You know, if you just apologize for resisting, maybe I can talk to the chief. We can work this out. A fine. You're gone." Ry finally turned his head. He peered through the plexiglass divider, locking eyes with Harmon in the mirror. "Officer Harmon," Ry said, his voice eerily devoid of emotion, "you're under the impression this is a negotiation. It's not. You've already committed the act. The deadline is set. Anything you tell me now is just evidence I'll use at your sentencing hearing." Harmon slammed his fist on the steering wheel. "You think you're untouchable because you have a badge? This is my town. The chief will have my back. The union will have my back." "Drive the car," Ry said. They pulled into the station lot. Normally a safe haven for Harmon, the Blue Castle, but today it felt like a trap. As Harmon parked the patrol car in the holding area, the Tahoes swarmed the entrance, blocking the exit. Harmon stepped outside and opened the back door. He grabbed Ray's arm to pull him out, but his grip was looser now, uncertain. "Walk," Harmon murmured. They entered the booking area. The guard sergeant, an older man named Frank, looked up from his computer. He held a half-eaten donut in one hand. "Hey, Brett, what's up? Another bum?" Frank joked, not looking up completely. "Process him," Harmon said, pushing Ray toward the counter. "Disturbing the peace, resisting arrest, impersonating an officer." Frank looked up. He saw the expensive suit. He saw the calm demeanor, and then he saw the face. Frank froze. Brett, just book him, Frank." Harmon was sweating profusely now. "Brett," Frank whispered, slowly rising to his feet. "Look at the monitors." Harmon glanced up at the wall of security screens. The lobby camera displayed a scene of utter chaos. The front doors had been forced open. 6 FBI agents in tactical vests were securing the perimeter. District Attorney Sarah Miller was standing at the main desk, yelling at the receptionist so loudly the audio was distorting on the monitor, and a news van was already pulling up behind her. "Who is this guy?" Frank asked, his face pale. Ry leaned forward against the counter, the handcuffs clinking against the laminate. "My name is Special Agent Raymond Bishop, and I'd like to speak with your boss right now." Just then, the heavy steel door separating the booking area from the offices swung open. Chief Wallace Garrick stormed in. Garrick was a man who spent more time at country club dinners than at crime scenes. He had silver hair, a tan too orange for October, and a legendary temper. He had a phone to his ear, listening to someone yelling on the other end. He hung up and looked at Harmon. Then he looked at Ray. "Take those handcuffs off," Garrick said. His voice was a low growl. "A chief. He resisted," Harmon began desperately. "He has a fake badge. I told him to take them off." Garrick roared, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. "Do you have any idea who's on the phone? The Illinois Attorney General. The governor's office is on hold, too." Harmon fumbled clumsily for his keys. His hands were shaking so badly they fell. They jingled on the floor, sliding toward Ray's feet. Ray didn't move. He looked down at the keys, then back at Harmon. "Pick them up," Ray said. Harmon bent down, humiliated, snatching the keys. He unfastened the handcuffs. Ray rubbed his wrists. He looked at his watch. He straightened his suit jacket. Then he looked at the chief. "Chief Garrick," Ray said calmly, "I'll keep these handcuffs as evidence." "Pack them up." "Agent Bishop," Garrick said, putting on his best political smile, approaching with his hand outstretched. "I'm so sorry. Clearly there's been a serious miscommunication. Officer Harmon here is overzealous. We can fix this. Come to my office. Let's have some coffee. Real coffee, not the break room concoction." Ray looked at the chief's hand. He didn't shake it. "I don't want coffee, Chief. I want to file a formal complaint, and then I want to sit in your interrogation room." "My interrogation room?" Garrick blinked. "Sir, you're free to go. We're taking everything back." "Obviously." "No," Ray said. "I was arrested. I was brought here. I want the full experience because if we stop now, your lawyers will argue later that it was a brief detention. You booked me. Now I want you to officially interrogate me with the cameras rolling." Garrick glared at Harmon, his eyes promising murder. "Harmon, to my office now." "No," Ray interrupted. "Harmon stays. He's the officer who made the arrest. He needs to write his report. If he leaves, he'll have time to fix his story with his union rep. Have him write it now in the squad room." Alone, Garrick realized he'd lost control of his own station. FBI agents were now visible through the glass in the booking room door, watching like sentries. "Good," Garrick hissed. "Harmon, go to the squad room. Start typing. If you miss a single comma, I'll fire you myself." Harmon shuffled away, a dead man walking. Ray turned to the chief. "After you, Chief." The Oak Haven PD interrogation room was standard. Cement block walls painted a dreary shade of beige. A metal table bolted to the floor. A two-way mirror that everyone knew was there. Ray sat in the suspect's chair. Chief Garrick sat across from him. District Attorney Sarah Miller stood in a corner, arms crossed, watching like a hawk. "Officer Bishop," Garrick began, clasping his hands on the table. "Look, I've known Brett Harmon for 10 years. He's an old man. He's old school. He makes mistakes, but he's a family man. He has 2 kids. I have 3, Ray said tersely. And my oldest son is 17. He drives a Honda Civic. He drives through towns like this to get to football practice. If Officer Harmon had pulled my son over instead of me, would my son be sitting here? Or would he be in the morgue?" The room fell silent. "That's speculative," Garrick said, tugging at his collar. "We're not here to discuss hypotheticals. We're here to discuss the pattern and the practice." Ray corrected him. "You see, Chief, while I was sitting in the back of that cruiser, I made a call, and my team in Chicago pulled up the Oak Haven PD stats." Ray pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, the report he'd been reading on his phone before the arrest. In the back seat, he'd scribbled notes during the ride. "Officer Harmon has 14 excessive force complaints in 5 years," Ray read. 12 of them involved minorities. 0 were upheld by your Internal Affairs Division. You approved every exoneration, Chief. Garrick's face hardened. Internal Affairs is an independent agency. Internal Affairs is Sergeant Miller, who I believe is Harmon's brother-in-law. Is that correct? Garrick paled. How? I'm the head of the FBI. We know everything. But here's the problem for you. This isn't just about one racist cop anymore. This is about a corrupt department, and you're the head of the snake. Sarah Miller stepped forward. Chief, I'm counseling you right now. Obviously, I won't prosecute Officer Bishop, but I will open an investigation into your department's use of force, effective immediately. You can't do that, Sarah. We're on the same team, Garrick pleaded. Not anymore, Sarah said coldly. You've embarrassed me. You've embarrassed the county, and you've violated the civil rights of a federal agent. I won't go down with you. Just then, the door opened. A young officer poked his head in. Chief, there's a problem in the lobby. What now? Garrick snapped. It's the press. They're everywhere. And there's a lawyer here, Marcus Thorne. Wait, no. Avoid that name. A lawyer named Benjamin Wright. Garrick threw his hands up in exasperation. Benjamin Wright was the most feared civil rights lawyer in the Midwest. He sued cities for sport. If he was here, it meant the lawsuit had already been drafted. Ray stood up. That's my lawyer. I called him from the cafeteria. Ray walked to the one-way mirror. He leaned forward, looking at his own reflection, knowing that behind the glass, someone was watching. This interview is over, Ray said. Chief, I suggest you keep all the body camera footage, all the dash cam footage, and the cafeteria security logs. If a single second of footage is missing due to a technical glitch or a server error, I will personally charge you with obstruction of justice. Do you understand? Garrick nodded, defeated. We understand. Ray left the interrogation room. As I entered the lobby, the camera flashes were blinding. Dozens of reporters were crammed into the small space. Benjamin Wright, a tall man in an impeccable pinstripe suit, was already giving a statement. A flagrant abuse of power. Wright was booming at the cameras. Officer Harmon saw a black man in a coffee shop and decided his mere existence was a crime. This city will pay for that mistake. Ray didn't stop to talk to the press. He didn't have to. The image of him leaving the precinct, flanked by FBI agents, adjusting his handcuffs, spoke volumes. He walked toward his SUV, which had been driven there by one of his agents. Sarah Miller followed him. Ray, wait. He turned. Sarah, I'm sorry our meeting had to be interrupted. Forget the meeting, she said. Are you okay? I'm fine, Ray said. But they're not. Sarah, I want Harmon's badge, and I want it by the end of the week. You'll have it, she promised. But Ray, the lawsuit, Wright's talking millions. Ray glanced toward the police station. He saw Harmon watching from a second-story window, a silhouette of regret. It's not about the money, Sarah, Ray said. It's about the cost. They have to learn that freedom isn't free, but oppression will be very, very expensive. Ray got into his SUV. Let's go, he said to his driver. As they drove away, Ray pulled out his phone. He had a new email. It was the security footage from the Bean and Leaf. The owner, terrified of being implicated, had sent it directly to the FBI's tip line minutes earlier. Ray watched the video. It was perfect, high definition, with audio included. It showed Ray sitting calmly. It showed Harmon aggressive, rude, and unprovoked. He forwarded the video to Benjamin Wright with a simple subject line, irrefutable proof. The first piece had fallen. Now the others would. Back at the precinct, Chief Garrick was in crisis mode. He marched into the squad room where Harmon sat, staring at a blank Word document. Are you an idiot? Garrick hissed. A complete idiot? Chief, I can fix this, Harmon said, standing up. I've looked into the law. If I can prove I had reasonable suspicion based on a 911 call, we're good. Qualified immunity. There was no 911 call, Brett. We can make one, Harmon whispered. The room went deathly silent. What did you say? Garrick asked. I have a burner phone, Harmon said, his eyes desperate. Maniacs. We call now. Retroactive. We say the timestamp was wrong. We say someone called reporting a man with a gun. That gives me probable cause to search him. If I have probable cause, the lawsuit goes away. Garrick glared at him. It was illegal. It was a felony. It was insane. But Garrick was thinking about his pension. He was thinking about next year's election. He was thinking about the $5.6 million hole this was about to put in the city's budget. Garrick walked over to the door and locked it. He turned off his body camera. "How do we do this?" Garrick asked. They were about to dig a hole so deep they'd never get out, because what they didn't know was that Ray's watch, a seemingly analog Omega, was actually a piece of office technology. It had been recording audio the whole time, and it was still recording into the evidence bag on the chief's desk just outside the thin glass wall. The Oak Haven Police Department squad room felt like a pressure cooker. The blinds were drawn. The door was locked. Chief Garrick sat down at his desk, his face bathed in the dim blue light of his computer monitor. Officer Brett Harmon paced nervously behind him, biting his nails until they bled. "Are you sure this is going to work?" Harmon whispered. "If the feds find out we tampered with the server—" "Shut up," Garrick snapped, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "The feds aren't looking at our local dispatch server. They're looking at you, and if we give them a reason to stop you, the heat will die down. We just need probable cause." Garrick navigated to the computer-aided dispatch, CAD, system. He had administrative privileges, the police department's God mode. He could view, edit, and delete records. It was a function designed to correct typos, not rewrite history. "Okay," Garrick murmured. The time of the incident was 8:20 a.m., so we need a call at 8:12 a.m. He opened a new entry. Call type, suspicious person, man with a gun. Location, The Bean and Leaf, 114 Main Street. Caller, anonymous. Notes, man in black suit. Customer saw a gun on his belt. Fear for his safety. Garrick pressed enter. The entry was inserted into the timeline, appearing indistinguishable from the actual calls surrounding it. There. Garrick exhaled, leaning back. At 8:12 a.m., the dispatch received a call reporting an armed individual matching the suspect's description. "That's why you came in. That's why you were aggressive. You thought you were dealing with an active shooter?" Harmon looked at the screen. A wave of relief washed over him. "It looks real." "It is real now," Garrick said, wiping the sweat from his brow. "This is the official record. When that lawyer, Benjamin Wright, requests the records, this is what he'll get. He'll see it. He'll know he can't win a civil rights case. He'll settle for a few thousand to disappear." They exchanged a glance. Two men bound by a secret that could send them both to prison for 20 years. "Now," Garrick said, standing up, "go wash your face. You look guilty. I'll release Bishop. We'll return his belongings. We'll apologize and get him out of here." Garrick opened the door. He walked over to the guard sergeant's counter. A clear plastic evidence bag lay there. Inside were Ray's Omega watch, his wallet with his ID and his phone. Garrick picked up the bag. He didn't notice the tiny rhythmic pulse of a small red pixel on the watch face. He didn't know the Omega was a modified piece of surveillance technology issued to high-ranking officers in the Bureau for undercover work. It had a 48-hour battery life and a microphone sensitive enough to hear a pin drop in the next room, and it had been within a meter of the squad room door the entire time. Garrick walked into the lobby, forcing a smile. Ray was there, his lawyer, Benjamin Wright, at his side. "Agent Bishop," Garrick said, handing over the bag. "Here are your personal effects. Again, I want to extend the department's sincerest apologies. Officer Harmon acted on incomplete information." Ray took the bag. He didn't smile. He opened it slowly, taking out his watch. He slipped it on his wrist. He touched the crystal face once. The screen flickered. A small icon appeared. Recording saved. Ray's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at the chief. He looked at the door to the squad room. He did the math. Incomplete information. Ray repeated slowly. Is that what we call it? We're conducting a full internal review, Garrick lied smoothly. But we believe there was a dispatch error regarding a service call. A mix-up. A service call. Benjamin Wright repeated, his lawyer instincts kicking in. My client was out buying a bun. There was no call. We'll see what the records say, Garrick said, his confidence returning. Have a nice day, gentlemen. Ray and Wright left the precinct. The autumn sun was setting, casting long, dark shadows across the parking lot. Once they were safely inside Wright's black sedan, Ray turned to his lawyer. Ben, Ray said quietly, don't settle. I wasn't planning on doing that, Wright said. But if they produce a 911 record, it complicates things. It gives them cover. Ray raised his wrist. He touched the watch face, displaying the waveform of the audio file. They fabricated it, Ray said. I've got them. You got what? I've got the boss and Harmon conspiring to falsify the record, Ray said. It's all here, crystal clear. Wright looked at the watch, then at Ray. A slow, shark-like grin spread across the lawyer's face. Ray, Wright said, don't give it to them yet. Don't give it to the press. Why not? Because, Wright said, starting the engine. If we release it now, they'll resign. They get a slap on the wrist, maybe probation. Wright left the parking lot, glancing toward the precinct. We wait for the statement, Wright explained. We put them under oath. We let them lie on the official record. We let them commit perjury, and then we drop the gavel. That's how we get the $5.6 million. And that's how we make sure they never wear a badge again. Location, Law Offices of Wright & Associates, Chicago. Date, 3 weeks later. The conference room was glass and mahogany with a view of the Chicago skyline. It was an environment designed to intimidate. At one side of the enormous table sat Officer Brett Harmon and Chief Wallace Garrick. Beside him sat the city attorney, a nervous man named Peter Lewis, who smelled faintly of antacids. Across the table were Ray Bishop and Benjamin Wright. A stenographer sat at the head of the table, her fingers poised on her stenographer. A video camera had been set up on a tripod, its red light blinking. This is the statement of Officer Brett Harmon, Wright announced for the record. Case number 24 CV890, Bishop versus City of Oak Haven. Wright began slowly. He asked about Harmon's training, his record, his disciplinary history. Harmon answered with rehearsed arrogance. He felt confident. The falsified record had been filed at Discovery 2 days ago. As far as Harmon knew, the evidence supported him. Officer Harmon, Wright said, leaning forward. Let's talk about the morning of October 14th. Why did you go into the Bean and Leaf? I was responding to a dispatch call, Harmon said confidently. Report of a man with a gun. I see. Wright shuffled some papers. And you received this call? How? Over the radio. It came up on my computer terminal. Harmon lied. Dispatch sent it. And the description. Black man in a suit, gun on his hip. Ray Bishop remained perfectly still. He was watching Harmon's eyes. He saw the microscopic twitch in the corner of the officer's eye. The clue. And you're absolutely certain this call existed before you went into the store? Wright pressed. He hadn't decided to harass Mr. Bishop and then look for a justification later. Absolutely not. Harmon scoffed. That would be illegal. I followed protocol. Chief Garrick. Wright turned his attention to the chief. You oversaw the retrieval of these records. Can you verify their authenticity? Garrick adjusted his tie. Yes, I extracted the records myself. The call came in at 8:12 a.m. 8:12 a.m., Wright repeated. Interesting. Wright reached into his briefcase. The room fell silent. City Attorney Peter Lewis stopped clicking his pen. He sensed a shift in the atmosphere. "I have here," Wright said, pulling out a USB drive, a digital forensic analysis of the Oak Haven PD server, "but more importantly, I have a recording." "Objection," Lewis stammered. "Recording? What recording?" "My client," Wright said, gesturing to Ray, "is a high-level federal agent. He carries a device that records high-fidelity audio for field evidence collection. On the day of his arrest, his belongings were seized. They were placed in an evidence bag on the desk of the duty sergeant." Garrick's face paled. He remembered where he had been. He remembered the door he had left unlocked. "This recording," Wright continued, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, "captured a conversation between Chief Garrick and Officer Harmon at approximately 4:30 p.m. earlier that day." Wright plugged the USB drive into his laptop. He turned up the volume. Chief Garrick's voice filled the room, clear and undeniable. "We just need probable cause. The time of the incident was 8:20 a.m., so we need a call at 8:12 a.m. Then Harmon's voice. "It sounds real." And Garrick again. "It's real now. When that attorney Benjamin Wright requests the records, this is what he'll get." Silence. Absolute suffocating silence. Harmon looked like he was going to throw up. Garrick stared at the table, his mouth slightly open, his career evaporating in real time. City Attorney Peter Lewis closed his folder. He pushed his chair back. "I need a recess. I need to call the mayor." "No." Ray Bishop spoke for the first time. He stood up. Ray circled the table. He didn't look like a victim. He looked like the special deputy director of the agent. "There will be no recess," Ray said, "because this is no longer a civil deposition." The conference room door opened. 4 FBI agents walked in. They weren't wearing tactical gear this time. They were in suits, but the handcuffs on their belts were very real. Wallace Garrick, Brett Harmon. One of the agents said, "You are under arrest for conspiracy to deprive of civil rights, obstruction of justice, and perjury." Harmon stood up, panic in his eyes. "You can't arrest us here. We have immunity. Qualified immunity protects you from civil lawsuits for mistakes," Ray said, getting close to Harmon's face. "It doesn't protect you from federal prison for felonies." The agents handcuffed Harmon. Then they handcuffed the chief. The camera was still rolling. The stenographer kept typing, capturing every word of his slump. "Mr. Lewis," Wright said to the terrified city attorney, "the settlement offer just went up. We're now asking for $5.6 million, and we want a federal consent decree on the Oak Haven Police Department. If you say no, we'll run this audio on the nightly news in 1 hour. 9. Peter Lewis looked at the handcuffed chief, then at the furious FBI agent. "I'll write the check," Lewis whispered. Ray watched as Harmon and Garrick were escorted out of the law office, through a lobby filled with secretaries and stunned clients. "Hard karma," Wright muttered, watching them leave. "Not karma," Ray corrected him, buttoning his jacket. "Justice. Karma is luck. Justice is work. Location: United States District Court, Northern District of Illinois. Date: 6 months later." The courtroom was packed. Every seat was filled with reporters, civil rights activists, and the stunned citizens of Oak Haven who had watched their town's reputation crumble on national television. Brett Harmon and Wallace Garrick stood before Judge Anthony Russo. They were no longer in uniforms or suits. They were in orange jumpsuits. The transformation was astonishing. Harmon, once burly and arrogant, looked deflated, having lost 20 pounds in pretrial confinement. Garrick looked like a ghost, his hands trembling as he gripped the defense table. Judge Russo, a man known for his harsh sentences in corruption cases, adjusted his glasses and looked at the two men. In my 20 years on the bench, Judge Russo began, his voice echoing in the quiet courtroom, I have seen criminals who steal out of hunger. I have seen men who kill out of rage. But what is before me today is something far worse. You two have robbed this community of its trust, and you have attempted to annihilate the very concept of justice simply because your egos could not tolerate a black man in a position of authority. Harmon looked down at his wives. Humiliated, the judge continued, Brett Harmon, for disenfranchisement under the guise of the law and for falsifying federal records, I sentence you to 12 years in federal prison. There will be no possibility of parole. Harmon's wife, sitting in the back row, let out a sob. Harmon closed his eyes. 12 years. He would miss his children growing up. He would miss his daughter's graduation. He would miss everything. Wallace Garrick. The judge turned to the former chief. You were the captain of the ship. You were supposed to stop this. Instead, you steered it toward the rocks to save your own skin. For conspiracy and obstruction of justice, I sentence you to 15 years. As the marshals moved to take them away, Ray Bishop stood in the front row. Harmon paused as he was led out. He looked at Rye. There was no anger left in Harmon's eyes, only a deep, empty regret. He opened his mouth to say something. Maybe. I'm sorry. But the marshal pushed him forward. Move it, inmate, the marshal said. The word inmate hit the courtroom like a hammer. The transition was complete. The predator had become the prisoner, but the punishment didn't end with prison. The following week, the Oak Haven City Council held an emergency meeting. The town hall was packed. The citizens were furious, not with Ray Bishop, but with the police department. The settlement had been finalized, $5.6 million. Because the police department's insurance policy had an exclusion clause for intentional misconduct, the insurance company refused to pay. The fraudulent dispatch records and the conspiracy proved this was no accident. It was a deliberate crime. That meant the $5.6 million had to come directly from the city's general fund. The mayor, sweating under the glare of the lights, announced the cuts. To pay for this judgment, the mayor stammered, We will be forced to cancel the renovation of the new high school football stadium. We will also be cutting library hours by 50% and raising property taxes by 4.5% over the next 3 years. The room erupted. The wealthy residents of Oak Haven, who had blindly supported the police for years, were finally feeling the cost of that support. They realized too late that corruption isn't just a moral failing, it's a financial liability. The blue wall of silence had cost them their football stadium. Ray Bishop watched the city council meeting on the news from his office in Chicago. He turned off the television. You got it all, Sarah Miller said. She had resigned as a prosecutor and was now in private practice, unable to bear the corruption she had uncovered. They're in prison. The city is paying. You won. Not yet, Rye said. One last thing. Rye picked up the check for $5.6 million. It was on his desk. It was life-changing money. He could retire. He could buy a house in the Caribbean. He could disappear. But Ray Bishop was an FBI agent. He didn't do this for the reward. I'm not keeping it, Rye said. Sarah stared at him, stunned. Ray? Are you crazy? I don't want his money, Ray said, standing up and walking to the window. I want his legacy. Rye picked up a file. I've already filed the paperwork. I'm going to use the entire $5.6 million to start a nonprofit organization based right here in Oak Haven. What kind of organization? Rye smiled. It was the first time he'd truly smiled since the cafeteria incident. It's a legal defense fund. It will provide free, high-quality legal representation to anyone in the county who is unlawfully stopped, searched, or apprehended by the police. We will hire the best civil rights attorneys in the state. We will audit every arrest. We will sue them every time they step out of line. Sarah's jaw dropped. Ray, you'll be using their own money to watch the police forever. And the best part? Ray handed her the brochure for the new foundation. Sarah read the name on the cover. She gasped, then burst into laughter. The Harmon Garrick Center for Civil Rights. You named it after them. I want their names to be remembered, Ray said, his eyes hard. I want every cop from that precinct to drive past that building every single day. I want you to see Harmon's and Garrick's names in big, bold letters. I want you to remember that if you abuse your power, you won't just go to prison. You'll unwittingly fund the very people you tried to oppress. Ray Bishop put on his sunglasses. Come on, Sarah. Let's get some coffee. I know a place. And that's how a simple morning run for coffee brought down an entire corrupt administration. Officer Harmon thought he was arresting a suspect. Instead, he arrested the architect of his own destruction. This story serves as a brutal reminder. Authority is not a license to intimidate. In the digital age where cameras are everywhere and the truth is just a subpoena away, the old ways of enforcing the law are dying. Harmon and Garrick learned the hard way that when you strip a man of his rights, you'd better be prepared to pay the price. For the citizens of Oak Haven, the $5.6 million tax increase is a daily reminder that silence in the face of injustice is never without consequences. And for Ray Bishop, it proved that the most dangerous weapon a man can carry isn't a gun. It's the truth. If this story made your stomach churn, or if you cheered when Ray released that recording, give it a like right now. It helps us bring these stories to more people. What do you think of Ray's final move? Was naming the legal center after the corrupt cops the ultimate revenge, or should he have kept the millions for himself? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more stories of harsh karma and cold, hard justice, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what we have in store. Stay safe, know your rights, and I'll see you next time.